The moment you defend yourself, you lose, not because you're wrong, but because you accepted a role you never should have taken. An accusation lands, a subtle jab, a raised eyebrow, a question meant to put you on trial. Your body reacts before your mind does. Heat in the chest, tight jaw, the urge to explain. And the second you open your mouth to clarify, justify, or correct the record, power leaves your hands. Because the world does not reward truth, it rewards control of the frame. The one who explains accepts judgment. The one who defends surrenders authority. The one who reacts places themselves beneath the one who provoked. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this long before modern psychology named it. Power is never about being right. It is about deciding what matters. And the most dangerous move in any confrontation is refusing to play the role you were assigned. Today, you're going to learn why defending yourself weakens you, why silence unsettles manipulators, and how doing nothing, at the right moment, flips the entire power dynamic in your favor. But understand this first. To use this, you must kill the part of yourself that wants to be understood, the part that needs approval, the part that begs to be seen as good. If you can let that part die, you become unreadable. And unreadable people are never controlled. This is where it starts. The moment you defend, you lose. The accusation lands, and your body reacts before your mind can catch up. A spike of heat, a tightening in the chest, a sudden urgency to fix the situation. This is not logic activating. It is cortisol. Your nervous system interprets accusation as threat, and threat demands response. Not a thoughtful one, a fast one. That is why the first impulse is always explanation. You want to clarify, add context, correct the record. You want to be understood, and in that moment, power leaves you. Explanation is not neutral. It is a signal. It tells the other person, you have the authority to judge me. The instant you begin defending yourself, you accept their frame. You step into their courtroom and sit in the defendant's chair. They ask the questions. You answer. They interrupt. You justify. They escalate. You scramble. It feels reasonable. It feels fair. It is neither. Power is not decided by truth. It is decided by frame control. Who defines what matters, who reacts, who remains still. The one who explains is reacting. The one who accuses is setting the terms. Even if the accusation is absurd, defending it gives it weight. You are saying, this deserves my energy. That is submission disguised as rationality. Notice how quickly posture shifts when you defend. Voices rise, speech accelerates, words pile on top of each other. You start providing evidence, texts, timelines, intentions. You lean forward. You seek agreement. All of it broadcasts the same message. My stability depends on your acceptance. The world reads that instantly. In moments of tension, people are not persuaded by accuracy. They are persuaded by certainty. Calm authority signals strength. Emotional urgency signals weakness. This is why someone can be wrong and still dominate the room, while someone else can be correct and still lose status. Defense is not about truth. It is about fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being seen incorrectly. Fear that the accusation might stick. And here is what most people miss. The attacker does not need to prove anything. The moment you defend, you do the work for them. You validate the premise that there is something to defend against. An opinion becomes a trial. This is why arguments spiral. Each explanation invites another accusation. Each justification creates a new angle of attack. The courtroom never closes because you keep recognizing its authority. The powerful never do this. They understand a brutal rule. The one who holds frame never explains themselves inside someone else's narrative. They do not rush to correct perception. They do not beg for clarity. They do not chase approval disguised as understanding. They remain still, and stillness is terrifying to someone trying to control the interaction. If defending yourself is weakness, then the real question is not how to defend better. It's where this reflex came from in the first place, because you weren't born with it. The childhood conditioning. You were trained to defend yourself long before you ever chose to. Not consciously, not maliciously, but thoroughly. Think back to childhood. Authority was everywhere. Parents, teachers, older siblings. When something went wrong, there was only one way to reduce danger: explanation. Silence looked like guilt. Justification looked like innocence. I didn't mean to. It wasn't my fault. Here's what really happened. Explanation became safety. Your nervous system absorbed a simple equation. Authority accuses. Explanation reduces threat. This had nothing to do with truth. It was about survival. Children do not negotiate power dynamics. They adapt to them, and adaptation hardens into reflex. The problem is, you grew up, but the reflex never left. As an adult, no one actually holds that same authority over you, yet your body behaves as if they do. A boss questions your decision. A partner twists your words. A stranger challenges you online. The reaction is identical. Cortisol spikes. Your voice speeds up. You explain. What you are really saying is not, "Here is the truth." You are saying, "Please don't punish me." This is learned submission. Modern life reinforces it quietly. Performance reviews. Social media outrage. Corporate language built around justification and apology. Over time, every opinion feels like a verdict. Every raised eyebrow feels like authority. Every disagreement feels like threat. So you defend yourself against everyone. Your boss, your partner, your friends, strangers who mean nothing. You project the old judge onto every face you see, and the more you defend, the more authority you give away. You teach people how to treat you. You show them that their approval regulates your emotional state, that your sense of self is negotiable. This is why "please understand me" is not innocent. It is a power statement, and not in your favor. It translates to, "I need your agreement to feel safe." That need is visible. It leaks through posture, tone, and pacing. People sense it instantly. Some exploit it. Some test it. Some lose respect without knowing why. Not because they are cruel, but because structure always responds to signals. The one who seeks permission invites judgment. The one who explains invites interrogation. The one who justifies invites escalation. The realization that breaks this pattern is simple and uncomfortable. Most people are not judges. They are not authorities. They are not arbiters of your worth. They are simply expressing perception. Once you see this, the courtroom collapses. There is nothing to defend because there is nothing at stake. The accusation loses weight. Urgency drains from the body. And in that space, a new option appears. Not aggression, not explanation, stillness. Once you see the conditioning, silence stops feeling dangerous. Silence as a weapon. Silence is not passive. It is not avoidance. It is not weakness. Silence is pressure without effort. When an accusation is thrown and you do not respond, something unnatural happens. The expected rhythm of conflict breaks. The attacker anticipates resistance, denial, explanation, counterattack. When none arrives, the interaction loses structure. A psychological vacuum opens. Human beings are deeply uncomfortable with unresolved tension. In confrontation, silence feels like a system error. The mind scrambles to restore balance, and when you refuse to do it, the burden shifts to them. This is why silence unsettles people more than anger. Anger gives them something to push against. Silence gives them nothing. They start talking again, not because they are winning, but because they are uneasy. They soften the accusation. They over-explain. They backtrack. They justify themselves. Without realizing it, they step into the defendant role you refused. Power has already flipped. A neutral presence does something brutal to an aggressor. It forces self-exposure. With no emotional reaction to anchor against, their aggression echoes back at them. They hear themselves. They feel the imbalance. They sense something is wrong. This is why calm unnerves manipulators. They rely on emotional hooks: guilt, urgency, outrage. Silence starves those hooks. It denies them leverage. You are not arguing. You are not resisting. You are not validating the premise that anything must be resolved. You are simply there, and the mind does not know how to attack emptiness. An insult is a punch. Most people tense up and absorb it, or punch back. Silence is stepping aside. The punch travels through air. The attacker loses balance. You cannot punch mist. You cannot dominate a void. This is why silence must be clean. No eye rolling, no sighs, no smirks, just stillness, steady eye contact, relaxed posture. Your nervous system communicates a single message: I am not threatened. That message lands immediately. But here is the nuance most people miss. Silence is not about punishing the other person. It is not withdrawal. It is a refusal to participate in a false frame. You are declining the invitation to explain your existence. That refusal is sovereign. Used correctly, silence does not escalate conflict. It drains it. The aggressor either collapses inward or exposes intent. Either way, clarity appears, without you saying a word. However, silence is not universal. There are moments where words are required, situations where non-response would be misread as incompetence or avoidance. Power is not rigidity, it is adaptability. Silence establishes dominance. But when words are necessary, they must follow the same rule: never defend. Because sometimes the most effective move is not absence of speech, but speech used without surrender. Agree and amplify. Defending yourself does something most people never notice. It legitimizes the attack. The moment you push back, explain, or argue, you silently admit the accusation deserves seriousness. You are saying, "This charge matters, and I must answer for it." That single concession gives their words weight. Agree and amplify does the opposite. Instead of resisting the accusation, you lean into it and exaggerate it until it collapses under its own absurdity. You do not fight the frame, you overload it. This creates cognitive dissonance. The attacker expects shame, anger, or defense. What they receive instead is ease, amusement, indifference. Their weapon stops injuring and starts looking ridiculous. Consider the difference. You're greedy. You only care about money. The defensive response: "No, that's not true. I work hard. I provide. You don't understand." Predictable, earnest, weak. The agree and amplify response: "Absolutely. I count my money every night and whisper affirmations to it." It's very unhealthy. Flat delivery. No sarcasm overload. No visible insecurity. What just happened? You refused the emotional contract. You showed zero sensitivity around the accusation. You reframed it as unserious because you are unserious about it. Humor here is not playfulness. It is signal. It signals that the topic does not touch your identity, that there is no wound to press, that the accusation has no leverage. This is amused mastery, the posture of someone so secure that attacks fail to register. It is one of the strongest high-status behaviors in social dynamics. Notice the pattern. People only defend what they fear might be true. A confident man laughs when called stupid. A generous man smiles when called selfish. A competent person shrugs when accused of incompetence. Agree and amplify works because it communicates this without explanation. You are not saying, "I am secure." You are demonstrating it. And demonstration always outranks declaration. There is another advantage. Agree and amplify exposes intent. If the attacker was genuinely concerned, the humor dissolves tension and opens dialogue. If they were trying to dominate or shame, The loss of seriousness frustrates them. Either way, clarity emerges. But this requires discipline. Exaggeration done with anger becomes sarcasm, which still signals emotional investment. Exaggeration done defensively looks performative. The tone must be calm, grounded, almost bored. You are not trying to be funny. You are signaling that the accusation cannot reach you. This is why agree and amplify is devastating in public. It collapses status attacks in front of witnesses. Instead of you scrambling to defend, the attacker looks over-eager, tense, disproportionate. They came to dominate. They leave exposed. Still, words are tools, not crutches. Agree and amplify is not constant joking. It is selective refusal of seriousness when seriousness is being used as a weapon. And sometimes silence is not the strongest move. Sometimes controlled language reverses power just as effectively, without surrendering frame, without validating judgment, and without explaining yourself. Refusing the defendant role. Every confrontation hides a structure most people never see. There is a judge, and there is a defendant. The judge asks, the defendant answers, "Why did you do that? What were you thinking? Who do you think you are?" The moment you start answering these questions, you have already accepted the lower position. You are no longer an equal participant in a conversation. You are on trial, and whoever is answering is admitting that the other person has the authority to evaluate, approve, or condemn. This is why defending yourself feels draining. You are arguing uphill. Power in conversation is not held by the person who speaks the most, or even the person who is correct. Power belongs to the one who decides what is being examined. Most people never realize they can refuse the role entirely. When someone questions you aggressively, the instinct is to respond directly, to justify, to explain, to add context. That instinct hands them the frame. The spotlight moves to you. Judgment stays with them. The Machiavellian move is simple. Shift focus from your actions to their reaction, not with hostility, not with accusation, with calm observation. "Why are you always so late?" The weak response explains traffic, alarms, excuses. The sovereign response does not defend. It pauses and redirects. "Why does my arrival time affect you this strongly?" Notice what just happened. The subject is no longer your lateness. The subject is their emotional response. You declined the defendant role and quietly placed them under the lens. This does not escalate conflict. It dissolves hierarchy. People who attack expect compliance or resistance. They do not expect analysis. When you observe behavior instead of defending yourself, the structure they were imposing collapses. This is not interrogation. It is reframing. You are not saying they are wrong. You are saying their reaction is revealing. That single shift restores parity and often dominance. Another example, you're being ridiculous. The defensive person argues the label. The sovereign response, "What makes you feel the need to use labels right now?" No insult, no anger, just curiosity. You turn the interaction inward without aggression, and that is unsettling. Most people are comfortable attacking. They are uncomfortable being seen. This works because it exposes emotional investment. Those demanding explanations are rarely seeking truth. They are seeking control. When you refuse to provide it and examine the need for it instead, power drains from the interaction. But there is restraint here. You are not trying to win. You are not humiliating. You are not asserting superiority. You are simply refusing to be judged. Refusing the defendant role is not domination. It is sovereignty. It communicates that your identity does not require external validation, approval, or correction. And here is the deeper truth. All of these techniques, silence, amplification, reframing, are surface expressions. The strongest defense is not a tactic, it is a state, and once you reach it, no accusation can touch you, even without saying a single word. Owning the shadow. Here is the uncomfortable truth most people never confront. You only defend what you secretly fear might be true. If someone accuses you of something completely absurd, something with no emotional hook, you don't react. You laugh. You feel nothing. The words slide off because there is no internal wound for them to land on. But when an accusation stings, when your chest tightens, when the urge to explain appears, that reaction is diagnostic. It reveals unfinished business inside you. This is the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is unintegrated truth. It is the parts of yourself you deny, suppress, or refuse to acknowledge. And denial creates leverage. When you reject a trait in yourself, you give other people the power to weaponize it against you. This is why shame is such an effective control mechanism. Someone calls you selfish, and you rush to prove generosity. Someone calls you incompetent, and you list achievements. Someone calls you cold, and you over-explain intentions. Each defense is an attempt to distance yourself from something you haven't accepted. But here is the paradox. What you own cannot be used against you. A man who has admitted he can be selfish is immune to being called selfish. A woman who knows she can be ruthless is untouched by accusations of cruelty. There is no shame leverage left. Owning the shadow does not mean indulging it. It means acknowledging it without collapse. There is a difference between saying, "I am perfect," and saying, "I am capable of this." When you can admit flaws calmly, without your identity shattering, attacks lose momentum. Accusations fall flat. There is nothing to expose. This is invulnerability through clarity. Notice the strength in a response like, "Sometimes, yes," no explanation, no apology, no defense, just ownership. This does not make you weak. It makes you unhookable. People expect denial. They expect resistance. They expect ego. When they meet quiet acceptance instead, their script collapses. This is why insecure people fight relentlessly to protect an image. Their self-worth depends on it. Secure people do not protect an image because they are not hiding from themselves. Shame thrives in secrecy. Power thrives in clarity. Once the shadow is integrated, insults stop being threats and start becoming information, often about the person delivering them. And something else happens. You stop leaking energy. No rehearsing conversations. No defending yourself to imaginary judges. No emotional hangovers after conflict. You become still, not passive, not submissive, still. And from that stillness comes a realization most people never reach. You were never on trial. There was never a judge. There was only fear of being seen. When that fear dissolves, defense becomes unnecessary. What remains is not technique, not strategy, not psychology. What remains is posture, a way of being that does not react, does not chase approval, and does not bend under accusation. This is the final stance, the position of someone who does not need to defend themselves, because they no longer need permission to exist. The sovereign frame. Power does not come from controlling others. It comes from no longer being controlled. The sovereign frame is the final shift. The moment you stop orienting your behavior around how you are perceived, not out of arrogance, not out of contempt, but out of internal authority. Other people's opinions are not facts. Their reactions are not verdicts. Their disappointment is not your responsibility to manage. Most people live as if they are constantly on stage, performing, explaining, pre-apologizing, managing impressions, negotiating for acceptance. The sovereign steps off the stage entirely. He does not rush to clarify. He does not scramble to be understood. He does not perform morality to earn safety. This is not coldness. It is centeredness. When you stop explaining yourself, something radical happens. Your energy stops leaking. You stop feeding other people's projections. You stop volunteering for judgment. Calm ownership replaces defense. If you are late, you are late. If you are firm, you are firm. If you made a mistake, you correct it, without theatrics. No justification, no self-flagellation, no apology reflex meant to soothe discomfort that is not yours. This posture changes everything. People test boundaries instinctively. They poke, provoke, accuse. Not always maliciously, but reflexively. When you defend, you signal uncertainty. When you over-explain, you signal dependence. When you do neither, you signal authority. Not dominance, not aggression, authority. The sovereign understands a simple truth. Perception follows posture. When you treat yourself as someone who does not require approval, others adjust. Not immediately, not comfortably, but inevitably. Because certainty is contagious. Non-defense is not a tactic you deploy. It is a permanent posture, a way of moving through the world without flinching, without chasing agreement, without shrinking under accusation. You still speak when necessary. You still take responsibility when appropriate. You still correct errors, but you do it without surrendering frame. You are not asking to be forgiven. You are not pleading to be understood. You state reality and allow others to deal with their response. This is why the sovereign is untouchable, not because nothing is said about him, but because nothing adheres. And here is the final truth. The need to defend yourself is the need to be validated. When that need dies, so does vulnerability. You do not need silence to be powerful. You do not need humor to disarm. You do not need techniques at all. You only need to stop explaining why you exist. The one who does not explain, does not submit, does not react, does not kneel. He stands. If this struck something uncomfortable, write, "I hold the frame." Subscribe to Iron Psyche, philosophy without anesthesia, where clarity matters more than comfort. Because the one who stops defending doesn't just gain power, he keeps it.